Welcome back. It's Ground Zero Salem. I'm just enjoying Thanksgiving night. After spending it with family, I'm stuffed. I took several naps. I took like 2 or 3 power naps, so I feel like I'm ready to go. Meant to do this like a week ago, but you know, life gets in the way, yada yada. So we're listening to Overcast, Boston band, metallic hardcore, before metalcore really became a thing, became a dirty word. I was never a huge fan of these guys back in the day. I just never got any of their stuff. And at the time that they were really kind of ascending to being a popular band, I was listening to stuff that was way more punk-based and fast. A lot of crust and street punk and stuff. But I randomly came across one of their CDs accidentally. I was shipped one by mistake in a case of another CD from Amazon, the used seller kind of deal, and I really liked it. So I went back and bought this. It's just got really cool, creative riffing. It's pretty intricate and technical for the style of music that it is. The vocals are kind of all over the place. There's a lot of interesting surprises with it, and I remember them being killer live. The singer, Brian Fair, and I think 1 or 2 other guys went on to be in Shadows Fall, who I'm not going to talk about. But I'm glad I gave this a shot and checked it back out, because it's really good. Way better than I remember. Just wasn't in the mood for it at the time. So it's kind of a lesson, you know? I try not to decide I hate anything anymore, just because who knows, I might like it at some point down the line. So that out of the way, I wanted to talk about some pretty big releases for hardcore. You know, I've been on this big hardcore kick lately, which goes back and forth. You know, I'm sort of like the guys in the bar in that one scene in the Blues Brothers where I like both kinds of music, hardcore and metal. Right now I'm more of in a hardcore kind of phase. Gotten a few metal releases that I'll talk about in a while, but I want to do all this hardcore stuff first. Get the toughest one out of the way. This is Madball for the Cause. There's so much to say about Madball and what they did to influence hardcore, how they kind of helped change the landscape of what hardcore punk was in the 90s, how Matt Henderson, the guitarist, sort of took an already existing style of songwriting and guitar work, this very chunky, all the hardest parts from a lot of thrash metal and stuff like that, but with all the fat stripped away and noodliness kind of taken out of it, and refined it into a modern version of hardcore. I could talk about how they almost kind of changed what hardcore meant. You know, there's a lot of stuff I could get into, but I'm just gonna keep it short and talk about the record, because I'll be babbling forever. I've already tried shooting this numerous times where I just go off on tangents and fucking babble. Madball's a very consistent band. All their records are good. Their last one, Hardcore Lives, was particularly strong. Over the years, they have been adding little new touches to their sound. I really was impressed with the song Doc Martin Stomp from the last record, which was like an oi jam. Fucking great song. This one, For the Cause, which came out on Nuclear Blast, continues to expand. They keep the core, no pun intended, sound going with, you know, fast parts, you know, fast punkish thrash beat kind of stuff into breakdowns. You know, those are all core components of this style, but they've gotten a lot of, I wouldn't say pop sensibilities, but a lot more catchiness going on with this. The way the vocals are produced, they're gruff and angry as ever, but there's a certain touch of melody to them. Not sounding like, but kind of approaching gruff, growly, but sung vocals the way Lemmy did, or the way Jeff Clayton from Anti-Scene does. Freddie doesn't sound like either of those dudes at all, but it's that same sort of idea where it sounds gravelly and raw and scary, but there's a hummable quality to it, which I really like. Matt Henderson returns on this. Previous guitarist Mitz, who did a hell of a job, stepped down. I don't think Matt is a touring personnel guy, but he did play on this record, and the riffs are, as I expected, great. This massive fold out here. Show you that real quick. And there's some catchy stuff. There's some really hard stuff. There's a song with Ice-T that's almost a straight up thrasher. That's my favorite song on the record, Evil Ways. The song with Lars from Rancid sounds a lot like Rancid, which mixed with Madball, which is interesting. They have a nice like reggae interpretation of Rev Up, which is a big single from this record, which is another ripper of a song. At the end of the album, the song Confessions, the bonus track, almost reminds me of something from their very early material, like Set It Off. It's pretty raw. I think it's maybe recorded in a different session or something like that, but it's a great almost kind of throwback to their original sound from their early days. So all in all, great hardcore record if you like New York hardcore. Even if you don't, it's a fantastically well-crafted piece of music. Very just perfectly executed by veterans. These guys have been at it for a long time. Coming up, we've got another heavy hitter, and it's Terror with Total Retaliation. Terror is a great fucking band that have been around for at least 17 years now, I want to say. 16, 17, 18, something like that. Time flies. I feel like Lowest of the Low came out yesterday, and I was just buying that CD after seeing them at one of the Hellfests and being super excited for that. They were doing tried and true hardcore with a slightly different approach. They were kind of refreshing things in the early 2000s. They were taking a very like heavy, muscular, metallic sort of style of hardcore that was prevalent in the late 90s, courtesy of Hatebreed and Sworn Enemy, you know, all the Stillborn bands. That kind of that heaviness and kind of pushing it further into faster territory, retaining the heaviness and just going into like straight up like 80s thrash, Youth Crew, fast kind of stuff. There's still tempo variations and busts and breakdowns or whatever you want to call them, but that core thing, what they did was very like rip your face off fucking great at the time. And all their records have been pretty consistent and pretty good. I own a bunch of them. I don't own all of them. They seem to come out with a record almost every year. This one is really excellent. I heard a lot of good things about it, and I've been in the mood for this kind of stuff, so I thought I'd pick it up. Got the new bassist there, Chris Linkovich, jumping. This guy's from Maine. I used to live up there, and I used to see his old band Outbreak all the time, and they were a lot of fun live. I believe he's been doing Cruel Hand for about 10 years now, who he's the vocalist for. One of the most surreal and physics-defying things that I'd ever seen at a hardcore show was a bunch of dudes during a slow part of a song all doing their synchronized floor punching thing, you know, all equal distance apart, punching at invisible little men on the floor like you do. And I saw Chris run across everyone's back across the entire venue, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon style. It's one of the craziest things I've ever fucking seen. So looking at that picture is like the first thing I fucking thought of. At any rate, this is great Terror material. They have that original sound that I just described, adding a few more things in here or there. The opening track is a burner. Slow, chugging, heavy, pounding, scary. It's one of the most convincing vocal executions I've heard from a hardcore singer in a long time. It might be the magnum opus of Scott Vogel's vocal work. This World Never Wanted Me. You know, it's a song about alienation, feeling on the outside, you know, well-worn lyrical territory in hardcore, to be sure. But what's impressive about it is you believe every fucking syllable he says. He sounds genuinely angry, and I believe that he is. It's a good 1-2 punch. It goes into Mental Demolition after that, which is a fast rager of a Terror song. And then in the middle, there's a hip-hop track with Post-Armageddon Interlude with Vinnie Paz from Jedi Mind Tricks, who's done a lot of work with Terror in the past. I know he's at least done an intro, and he did guest vocals on a Breakdown cover, if I'm not mistaken. I know he's done other stuff with them. There's a little bit of just extra shit going on in the music here and there, little glints of new stuff that they're bringing to the table to keep things fresh. Spirit of Sacrifice has a certain like epic melodic kind of slower quality to it that I really like. And I Don't Know You is a great song. Yeah, just all out fucking ripper of a fast New York style hardcore record. I think these guys actually started in Buffalo at the very beginning, but they've been based out of LA for forever. This came out on Pure Noise Records who I've never heard of before. There's not that much of the booklet, but I'll show it off for sake of being a good YouTuber. And next up we got World Be Free. Now this isn't new, this came out 2 years ago, but I figured I'd mention it just because Scott Vogel of Terror is the vocalist. It was kind of a side project thing he did with huge all-star lineup. Arthur from Gorilla Biscuits, we got Sammy Siegler, who played in Youth of Today and Side by Side and a bunch of other bands, maybe Gorilla Biscuits too, I don't remember. Andrew Klein from Strife, and this guy Joe Garlip, who I believe was in Despair, Scott's old band from Buffalo. And it's melodic, really positive, upbeat, catchy, hardcore. You could say Gorilla Biscuits is definitely an influence. There's a guy from Gorilla Biscuits in the band. A lot of the West Coast stuff too, though, like Uniform Choice, that kind of thing. It's cool hearing a guy who's normally doing a growled, shouted, hoarse, scary kind of hardcore vocal trying his hand at melodic stuff. I like it because it's a deeper sort of melodic thing. You can tell it's Scott. He does a great job singing on it, but he's not doing an imitation. He doesn't sound like, I don't know, Zoli from Ignite, or it's not high-pitched, you know, but it's that style, which I appreciate. And I love the Schoolhouse Rock style layout on this. It's just cool. It's adorable. This came out on Rev 2016. And finally, for the heavy hitters, we have the new Sheer Terror 7-inch. Sheer Terror are one of my favorite bands of all time. This is called Pall and the Family. Came out on Reaper a couple of months ago. Since their reformation, Sheer Terror hasn't disappointed me once. They've done a full-length, another 7-inch. They did a tribute 7-inch of Oi covers, a few other things. I think they did a flexi that I need to get my hands on. So this one's on yellow. I think it's on 3 different colors. You can check out the Reaper website. I'll put a link. And I love everything they've done since Paul's reformed the band. The full length is excellent. Standing Up for Falling Down. Spite 7-inch is really good. This is my favorite thing so far. 4 songs. The first 2 songs, Moon's Gone Out, Bohacks, Wetson's Tongue Bow, and Me, sound like vintage Sheer Terror with a slightly more modern production. Raw, ugly, slightly metal tinged, fast hardcore. You know, Sheer Terror always captivated me because they had that sort of scariness that Poison Idea and Negative Approach had, but especially on their first record, they had like a very distinct Celtic Frost sort of influence. And I don't think the newer members of this band are necessarily trying to replicate that or ape that, but they definitely get the spirit of it very well. Very fast, mean. North Shore Love Affair, the first song on the second side, is very weird, slow, kind of melodic in places. There's a lot of songs like that on their full-length Love Songs to the Unloved, where they went off, and it's weird. That record, half of it's almost like fast punk, oi, catchy chorus, fist in the air kind of songs, and then there's a handful of songs on it that are very strange, kind of weirdly sludgy, melodic vocals when Paul really belts it out and sings. They kind of sound like Life of Agony. And I didn't like those songs at first when I first heard that record, and I grew to love those songs. And that's what this first song on the second side, North Shore Love Affair, sounds like to me. Get Me Off This Rock is like a lovely marriage of Poison Idea and Motorhead. It's got that great bluesy rock and roll riff style to it. It's really fast. All the lyrics on this are related, from what I gathered in an interview, most of the lyrics on this are related to the bassist's divorce. Sheer Terror lyrically are no stranger to songs about heartbreak and loss, and for me personally, my favorite lyrics about heartbreak and loss, and this is no exception. Just an all-around fantastic release. I say fantastic way fucking too much. This is all in all a great release. It's my favorite thing that they've done since they've gotten back together. Now hopefully I'll get to catch these guys live again soon. I don't know when they're playing Boston again, but they thankfully, mercifully, they play out live a lot. So, some newer bands I'm going to get to. This is Candy. This came out on Triple B. This is called Good to Feel. This is a band that's pushing things forward with evolving the sound of what modern hardcore is. And there's a lot of bands that are doing that, I feel like, but not a lot of them I like. You know, I'm an old guy. I'm set in my ways. There's a lot of newer bands who I won't mention because I'm not into slagging anybody off. They're not my thing. They're all pretty good players, but it's for the next generation. It's not for fossils like me. It's fine. These guys, however, are right up my alley because they just merge so many great ugly textures. There's a good amount of kind of chunky metallic breakdownish stuff on it that calls to mind a lot of New York stuff and Integrity. There's definitely several nods to Japanese hardcore on this. There's even a song called Systematic Death, which is very cool. So they have that kind of interspersed with like chunkiness and heaviness. They have like a lot of that discharge beat going on. The first song rips right out of the gate with some blast beats, but the way that the guy's executing the blasts, it keeps changing from blasts to rolls and stuff. It's just very very cool and very creative. The last song on this is really heavy and ominous, but also takes a big influence from Britpop as far as like some melodic stuff going on with it, which is awesome. I've never really heard much stuff like that. Not a big fan of that scene, but it's cool to hear it on. I don't know if I'd be into a whole record of it, but it's cool to hear it on this. It's sort of leading it out. There's another song that has a very strong like Integrity influence, like the creepy Humanity is the Devil era kind of stuff, Systems Overload, the melodic kind of slayery kind of Integrity stuff going on. So yeah, fantastic, good to feel. Very abrasive, almost brick-walled, like massive sounding production. Normally stuff produced that way I don't really like. It's just too much. It's like Brillo on the ears, but the way that this is put together on here, it just sounds really, really good. Vocals are glass gargling, kind of mid-range, raspy, completely venomous, completely pissed. Awesome stuff. One band that's kind of, I feel, sort of in the realm of Candy sound-wise is this band Maniac from right here in Massachusetts. These guys are mostly fast, though. Strong Japanese hardcore influence on this. It's an influence on Candy as well, but very much so on this. It's got the total Bastard and Death Side kind of very, very fast drumming approach to it. Vocals are very Dwid Hellion. I don't want to be uncreative or derivative, but a lot of people are saying that this tape is kind of in between vintage Integrity and Japanese hardcore, and that's the best I can do. And you know, that's a great thing. You know, it sounds like there's some other stuff going on there, some older American hardcore influence probably, but just a fucking shredder. Just nasty tape. I'm gonna put a link to this on that. And finally, I almost forgot, just because it was hiding under my hat over here, I have this new Ecostrike maxi EP. This came out on Triple B. I should mention that the Candy came out on Triple B as well. Triple B is really killing it lately with great hardcore records. This is entitled Voice of Strength. This calls to mind the first year or so I was going to shows where I grew up. It sounds a lot like the first Earth Crisis 7-inch, kind of like early Strife, but way better. I don't know, a lot of Smorgasbord records kind of stuff, early New Age records, just all that kind of shit. The first Unbroken LP, maybe. It's got the metal starting to, it's got the kind of hardcore starting to kind of turn into metal a little bit, but just really good guitar work. The occasional lead, very tight, you know, not as many open chords, a lot more kind of chugging, but not necessarily doing like a thrash metal thing. Clear, somewhat sung, kind of impassioned vocals. Very big into the vegan straight edge thing, these guys. And just from the layout and the packaging to the style, the lyrics, it's very much gives me memories of my first couple of years going to hardcore shows, and that's a cool thing. I know that these guys are from Florida and that they were in some sort of metalcore project before, but I don't remember off the top of my head what they came from. But very into the vegan straight edge thing. You know, it's not just a gimmick. They live it. It's good for them. And yeah, fucking heavy as fuck, really good. If you like New Age record stuff, if you like All Out War 7-inch by Earth Crisis, Early Strife, I guess, that kind of shit, I would recommend the hell out of this. It's a wonderful, wonderful record. Their 7-inch is also just as good, very similar. Okay, and that's going to be it for right now. I'm probably going to shoot another video maybe tonight. Who knows if I'll be up for it. I'm going to shoot another video soon. We'll just say soon, because I keep shooting myself in the foot saying, I'm going to do this tomorrow, and then it's like 2 weeks. I'm going to, got just a CD update of some other hardcore stuff that, you know, stuff that I've been meaning to pick up, some grails, I guess, and shit like that. So we'll talk about that. Oh yeah, we will.